Hello, everyone. Welcome to another round of IG Live. I'm Brad. I am here on a sunny afternoon here on the East Coast. I'm going to have the opportunity to talk with a wonderful individual, one that I've come to respect. Hello, Goddess. Good to see you. Hey, Kelly. And she is coming on here shortly. Her name is Beck, and she is a wealth of knowledge, especially when it comes to deconstructing and having experience within the church atmosphere and what's like coming out of that. And so I'm looking forward to having that conversation and hearing her thoughts. She has a lot of wisdom to offer, and so we're going to get started on that as soon as she's able to join us live. Allow me to just take a moment real quick. I am Brad. I am a life coach. I help people through deconstruction, anxiety, and some other issues. You can find any of my information on coachingwithbrad.org, my website, or just go ahead and click the link in my bio to follow all my information, my blogs, and everything like that. So, looking forward to hearing from you if you would like to talk. Hi Beck. How
Hi.
you doing?
Hey. Good. How are you?
That's good. You know, it's always awkward talking by yourself until that person hops on, you know?
Oh no, it's
Uh,
all good. You got to put your stuff out there. Like,
I
tell
guess.
them what you're doing. It's good.
So, thank you for joining me on this beautiful day. At least I hope it's beautiful there. Is it
It
beautiful?
actually is. It's been really rainy, but we're having a break, so it's pretty
Oh,
there. It's pretty here right now.
very good. Yeah, we've got temperatures are about 70 degrees here, if not a little bit lower. So,
Nice.
colors and starting to get that fall feel. So,
Yeah, I
uh,
love it.
well, excellent. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Guests are joining, and those that are going to watch the replay, welcome as well. I'd like to ask you if you take a moment, just kind of introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. My name is Beck or Becca. Either one. Just not Rebecca because I that's my government name. um, and I run the page Say What I Wanna here on Instagram. And I have just been like sharing my thoughts and my journey on, um, deconstructing, which kind of that word is now becoming I'm trying to go away from it. My experiences with learning and unlearning toxic theology, uh, and all of the things that life and society and church and all of that has told us. You wanted me to tell a little bit about my past, or just what I'm doing now?
Just introduce yourself now. We're going to jump
Okay.
right into
Oh,
this.
cool. Okay. Yeah. So that's
So,
me. I'm Becca. Yes. I'm excited to be here.
so the wonderful thing about one of the wonderful things about you and your understanding of the church environment and coming out of the church environment is that you are a PK kid.
Yes, I
Okay,
am.
and those always held special places in my heart because you know when I was younger, I was in high school. If a child acted up, a lot of times you hear, "Well, that's because they're a PK kid." Just to let you know
Yeah.
that's that's the
Yes.
goal that goes around, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your upbringing within the church.
Okay, so I was born into a church that was a really big church at the time in the mid 80s. Um, and my dad was an elder and like associate pastor, one of the pastors on well, he wasn't on staff then, but he was functioning in an elder role as a pastor over a district at that time. So yeah, I was born into that church. It is a non-denominational uh evangelical as far as like basic doctrine goes, but then there was like the charismatic Pentecostal influence in there, so it was kind of a fusion. Um and so yeah, I have been a PK my entire life. It's all I've ever known. Church was all I had ever known. When I was 10, my dad actually moved to a city a couple hours away and started his own church. And so I got that second layer of pastor's kid experience when your dad is the top dog.
Yeah.
um, and yeah, so basically, I have been in everything you can imagine from kids' church, like as far as what I've taught and what obviously I've experienced it as the kid, but I've also like taught kids' church. I was a Christian education director at obviously the PK worship leader for 20 years. I traveled the world with my dad and did ministry. We got into like the prophetic side of things. So, for those who don't know, that's like a ministry where you kind of hear from God on for people and then share it to them, similar to kind of a psychic or a medium in many ways. Only if I were to compare it and like somebody from my former life heard me, they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, no, that's so demonic," you know. But so yeah, that's what I was a part of. And then my husband and I actually planted a church online. We were kind of ahead of the curve. Like 2020, everybody went online, but we were like a few years ahead of that. So I've basically been in everything you can ever imagine in the church, including, like I told you when we talked a while ago, the fly on the wall that heard all of the conversations of what happens in the background. So yeah,
So
that's
you were totally ingrained, obviously, every aspect of the church. And
every
I
aspect.
have a father who's a pastor. Um, you hear everything, or you at least kind of know or get the feel for everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So one of the things I love that in your story is the fact that you know about church planting.
Mm-hmm.
I myself was a former church planter. Uh,
Awesome.
well, and so,
Well, well,
yeah,
I mean, awesome in that we can relate, Brad. Not like,
yeah, I think about it now. I'm like, ooh, because
like,
we went with 12 people, planted a church in Florida.
okay.
Uh, they now built a building. It's running about 1,500 people.
Wow.
And sometimes I look back and go, oh, did I do that? You know,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
yeah. So I
Like a
appreciate
little bit shameful, a little bit embarrassing now that you're on
that.
the other side. But at the same time, like you got experiences though that are valuable. Do you know what I
That's
mean?
true.
In some ways.
That's very true. If I can just, I think the big thing for me was, when I was in ministry, that was like, okay, that's the height. When you're a church planner,
Uh-huh.
I mean, you're a different breed.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
kind of feel to it, right? Now it's like, oh, I was a church planner. So yeah, but then moving.
Yeah, like I'm a little embarrassed, but whatevs.
All right, so that's really cool. So tell us a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, when you began to deconstruct, if I can use that word because I know that's
Yeah,
not,
sure, absolutely.
and how you ended up um, balancing that and where you're at spiritually.
Well, I think what happened is that it was so much effort to attempt to balance uh deconstructing and religion, right? So we had started with like little things. There was no term for this like a decade ago. Like I didn't know what deconstruction was then. But we had started to kind of unlearn some things that we were learning and even starting to question different things. My husband, who runs a page on here, cult.spirit, he was ahead of it for me and was definitely doing a really good job to like slowly introduce me to some concepts because I was all in. Like there was no way you were gonna make me question this faith. You know what I mean? Um, so for a long time there, it was like we're gonna unlearn, we're gonna deconstruct, um, but we're gonna stay. Like we're gonna stay within the church, whatever.
Right.
And we had some adverse church experiences along the way. Some were more painful than others, but it got to the point where it was like, there's no such thing for me. People can do a great job at deconstructing many things, but still choosing to remain in the faith if they want to. But for me, I was like, this is not working. I can't balance. Like there is no balance. Like this is too much effort to try and maintain both. And so it was sort of like let's be done. And we went to our final Sunday service in church was December 30th of 2018. And on the way home, Luel, my husband, looked at me and was like, we're done. We're not going back. And I was like, really? We are for real? Like, are you serious? It was just like this, whoa, this is happening. But of course, in Christian speak, because, you have to kind of finesse your way through that world, we just said we were going to take a sabbatical. And then eventually, after like 6 months, I started realizing that so many of the things that I suffered with as far as like my mental health and my overall like peace in my heart, like just many things started to kind of improve. Like I wasn't dealing with as much depression. I wasn't dealing with as much anxiety and exhaustion and just so many different things. And it was sort of like, wow, once you're out and you've relieved yourself of the burden of having to perform and be what the church expects you to be, you realize how freaking hard it was to maintain that life and how exhausted you were, but how disconnected you were from yourself to let yourself realize how freaking tired you were and that you needed a break, you know? So being out, it was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I can breathe again. Like I feel light. I feel, you know, and so ultimately the balance of deconstruction and spirituality, I stopped. I ceased to put forth that effort, and I kind of just let myself go all in to deconstruction, as they say. Yeah.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot to handle, right? And
Yeah.
I would like to call attention as well. You mentioned your husband, Colt
Yes.
Dusby.
Mm-hmm.
Following his journey and your journey is just fascinating to me. And it's rare that you have two people that have journeyed that together and
Yes.
stayed together and unified on what they think and believe and are flexible with each other.
Absolutely.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah. Super fortunate.
Yeah, very, very fortunate. So that's awesome. So I would encourage anybody watching this to go look at his page and his YouTube page as well, because he's amazing, amazing stuff on there. A quick shout out because Elizabeth says, hi, beautiful people.
Hi.
Hi, Elizabeth. Great to see you. Okay, so you left the church. Basically, you sabbatical. COVID hits. You know, all of that stuff happens within this. How has that leaving or deconstructing impacted your family through that process? Knowing your dad, you know, was pastor. So, I mean, what happened there?
Well, they don't know. The long and the short of it is that I have not told basically anyone. Luell, thankfully, he has shared with like his side of the family. They're the best, super understanding. Not that my family isn't the best, but they're still immersed in that world.
Sure.
And I kind of had to be in this it was a kind of this mindset of what is more valuable to me at this point, to have to be known fully by them, or to allow them to just know what they know of me and maintain a relationship with them. Like, which one is more important to me right now? And to be honest, maintaining the relationship for me was more important than them knowing all of me. Now, I can't say that that's always going to be the case, because now I'm 3 years removed almost from that final Sunday service, and a lot has changed. And so walking into conversations with family where they assume I'm exactly the same is pretty challenging. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, like they're talking to me about all the things, and, you know, scripture and church songs and blah, 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 blah. And I don't know if I can't speak to it now, because at this point, I still feel like I'm willing to bear the discomfort to maintain the relationship. However, I don't know what it will be in the future. And at this point, I can't imagine losing them in the way that I have them. You know what I mean? And can I live without them? I feel like no. I can't live with that severed relationship. However, them not knowing me is equally painful. So I kind of live right in between the tension of those two sides there. And so as far as like with my immediate family, obviously super fortunate to be going through this with Luell. He's been like a huge strength and help and advisor to me in many ways. Just getting to pick his genius brain has been a huge help for me. And then being able to talk stuff out as we wrestle through, like, oh my God, we don't believe in what's the afterlife like? Like, we've had some pretty crazy conversations. And so I'm really fortunate to be walking the path with someone. And then, you know, as far as like with my children and all of that, we've just taken them along the journey of unlearning with us and saying, this is what we used to believe. This is why we were like this with you as parents. And now we're like this, and kind of explaining. And then it's been brilliant to hear their little minds, because they're like, they'll say things like, yeah, we always thought that was dumb. And I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, it's so cool to hear that they always had their own mind. And we got them out before we taught them worse how to lose their autonomy and their own thinking. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of what tends to happen in the church, is you end up losing your sense of autonomy and self just to go along with the rest. So I'm thankful that they are being raised now to have their own minds and have their own thoughts, and we encourage that. So yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, you've given great advice that's helped out. Was that Vonnie Mommy? Is that how you?
Yes, Bonnie Mommy.
And it is the most challenging part.
Yes,
And that is such a tight line to walk with family members.
it really is.
And no one should ever say you're wrong for keeping that to yourself for a while. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
family and what needs to be said and not said.
Right.
So that was well done and well said.
Thank you.
That I know you'll have further challenges probably with that in the
Yeah.
future.
Well, like a challenge just came up. I have a family member who's in town. They have no idea of of my deconstruction. I don't even think they know that I don't go to church, nothing. And she's here and she's going to be preaching at my brother's church, which is now the church my dad gave to my brother. So she's like, "You're going to be there, right?" And I'm like, like, "Oh, see, it's like there's these complications because do I want to tell her all this now? No. Like, and I don't feel like I need to. Like,
right.
what I choose to keep to myself is what is mine,
Highly
But at the same time, do I constantly bend myself into fitting into the former mold of Becca, who is long gone, just to make the relationship be at peace? I don't know. And those are the tricky parts where I'm like, there's got to be a line for me somewhere, and I'm currently in the process of saying, what is the line for me that I'm not willing to cross in order to maintain that? Like, at what point will I say, no, my honesty is more valuable than me trying to fit into the old me? Do you know what I mean? And so I think it's beautiful to be able to, like, I'm connected with myself enough to be able to say, I know exactly where I'm at in this. And I think being able to kind of articulate that and feel that for me is super valuable, and helps me to maintain my own dignity. You know what I mean? So it's tricky, but it's good.
Yeah, I completely understand about where do you live and how do you balance that. I mean, my situation is a little different because when I stopped being a pastor, obviously there's questions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I kept it quiet for a while from everybody, and just tried to keep it within the family, if you will. But then it got to the point, it's like, hey, I can't hide this any longer because they're going to ask where. I've always been in ministry. Are you going to jump back in? What are you going to do? And I was like, okay, I've got to come out with this, and it's okay. I came out with it on my time.
Yes.
And that was fine. But I knew by coming out with that, I was going to lose my mom. I was going to members. I knew that was going to happen. But I waited till I was comfortable for me.
Right.
Doing that.
Yes.
And I also controlled the dialogue.
Absolutely.
That's important. So good luck to you on your journey with that. I know there are other challenges, but I think it's great that you are keeping this within you.
Yeah. And I have said a few things. Like I've said, like I've told my dad, like I've divorced myself 100% from this American Christianity. Like I've said that language. I've said, I'm not going back to church ever. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've dropped little things. We have a family that just keeps it super real as far as like I'm able about real certain things. So I'm able to kind of say those things, but how he receives it, is he taking it that serious, or does he think I'm just being funny, outspoken Becca? I don't know. But I have dropped plenty of hints to say, no, that's wrong. And even it's been cool because in some ways, I'm able to talk about toxic theology. And we just talked about something the other day, and it's like, how cool. Like, I didn't sacrifice myself in order to just, have this conversation with my dad. It was like, no, I got to keep it totally real with him about something that I find extremely toxic in the church. And he goes, you know what, that is toxic. And I was like, yes, it is, And so in that way, like, I'm dropping hints, but as far as coming out and saying, hey, I no longer, well, I guess I kind of told him I don't consider myself a Christian in that term. He's like, oh, American Christianity, like white supremacy, all of those things. Yeah. He can get behind that a little bit, but, or like, it's palatable to him. But if I were to keep it as real as like my Instagram page, which by the way, is blocked. All my family's blocked. Like
Right.
all my family, and then any close family friends that I feel like could potentially discover my page. I'm like, and that could seem way too over the top, but for me, I want this to be my safe space. And if that means blocking different individuals that would make me feel unsafe if they knew this information, then so be it. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Totally
So
agree.
yeah,
I
boundaries.
think you're handling it great. Not that my opinion matters, but I
No,
think
thank you. I appreciate it.
I think that's awesome. So one of the things that we talked about, which I thought was really, really cool, was that you are big into encouraging people to find their voice.
Yes.
You know, how can someone that's been steeped in religion um, begin to trust themselves and use their voice?
Whew. Excuse me. That's a really loaded question.
Sorry, you
No,
can.
that's good. Um, I think it's just such a process, and I think what it starts with is second guessing all you've learned, especially about who you are. You know, the being told from my earliest ages that I am a sinner and that my sins hung Jesus on the cross, a man who I had never known. But they're telling me he's God, but then I killed him because of my sins. And I'm like 4 years old, and I'm like, whoa, taking that grape out of the fridge without asking must have been a big deal. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Like all of these, just all of the things that we're told that hinder us from even believing anything positive about ourselves in general, from being able to trust ourselves in general. It started for me with going through those teachings and saying, even down to like, and for women in the church, it can be a different experience a little bit from men, because we're also told that we're a stumbling block to men. And that, like, I went to Bible college, and our like a lighthearted catchphrase was, because you don't want to cause your brother to stumble. Like, we said it like it was just, you know, McDonald's commercial, like, I'm loving it, like just some little thing. It was just a common thing. So it's like, hold on a minute, I'm not responsible for the eyes of men, and if they want to look at my behind parts, then the Bible says to gouge out their eye. You know what I mean? So why are we not talking about that? um
Yeah.
which we had like some spoof songs that the Bible college students made up, like, if your hand is causing you to sin, chop it off. Like, silly, just, we're singing about these things and making light of it, but it's like, whoa, we're actually really internalizing and believing these things about ourselves that are really unhealthy. And so it has been a mix of confronting those teachings and then saying, no, like, I am not just this depraved and horrible person who cannot be trusted. You know what I mean? Like, my heart is not deceptive above all things. I can actually lean into what my heart is telling me, and most of the time when I do, the outcome is positive. You know what I mean? Starting to question my own experiences, and and looking at them from objective eyes outside of the cloud of toxic theology, and being able to say, I am freaking awesome. Like, I can trust my own self. Like, I have pretty freaking good discernment. Like, I can take the experiences that, sure, maybe they're trauma responses, but they have definitely taught me a little bit of how to relate to other people, and how to care in a way that I wouldn't had I not gone through those adverse experiences. And so it was taking me back. It was finding me again. And it even has boiled down to some things as simple as, like, Becca, what do you want in this moment? Because I was a chronic people pleaser as a pastor's kid, being a performer, like showing up. I could be in the depths of despair. I could have been depressed in my room, not eating, but then it's Sunday morning and I put on my makeup and I got my outfit on, and I'd be like, hey, praise God. Yeah, things are so good. So I knew how to do the acting. Um, and being a chronic people pleaser means you don't check in with yourself. And I needed to check in with myself. So even when different scenarios come up, and my husband is a great accountability to me in this, because he'll be like, babe, what do you really want? Are you really tired? Like, can you do that for someone else if they're asking for my help or whatever? Is just checking in with me. Like, what do I want right now? Like, what would make me feel at peace right now? If there's somebody invites me somewhere, is that something I really want to do? Do I have the capacity for that? Like, if I'm thirsty, like, get up and go get a drink of water. If my body says you got to go pee, like, get up and go pee. Stop ignoring your internal voice and your body that's trying to communicate with you about you to keep you well. And so that's how reconnecting with yourself can start in the most simple way of just being like, what do you want today, Becca? What do you want? What's going to make you feel like you can embrace this day? Do you know what I mean? And having that relationship builds trust. And what's really cool is because I embody this body, that trust can build really quickly, faster than with somebody else, I feel like, at least in my experience. So yeah, it's really just that reconnection with self to build trust.
Wow, you just totally nailed that question.
Okay, good.
I mean, the whole thing was awesome because I got to tell you, obviously, your husband chimed on or asked to be served.
Yeah.
Those coping mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
I love the gag me with a spoon, like 80. I mean,
Yeah, it's so
I,
classic. Gag me with a spoon.
so I hear you with that because I've always been a people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so there was always that performance on Sunday.
Yes.
And then being in the ministry, there was obviously that performance on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
You never felt like you could really be you
Right.
on Sundays. I mean, it gets in your system and in your core and makes you feel that way all the time.
Yes, so
I mean,
much.
totally. And so that's one of the things when I was coming out of deconstructing or
Mm-hmm.
myself for the first time, if you want to call it that, or however you want to phrase it, it was coming up going, hey, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
What do I like? What do
Mm-hmm.
I do? Because I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I have no clue. I've always
Mm-hmm.
been told to do because I was a middle child, people pleaser, and
Same.
walked the straight and narrow and never did anything wrong. Kind of like, boom.
Yep.
You know, so what do I like? Do I even like sports? Do I
Right.
was I just doing it for this? And so I feel that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I love the examples you gave. Okay, so you talked about stopping yourself and
Mm-hmm.
asking questions to yourself.
Yes.
Okay, now I think that's awesome. How did you mentally train yourself to do that? I mean, because for people that have been indoctrinated within religion,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like it's just instinct to go like you've always gone.
Yes.
How do you mentally change that and break that? How did that happen for you?
I think I kind of rode a little bit of the wave of the self-care idea.
Right.
And while now I think that has been like commercialized and there's a lot of toxicity leaking into the whole self-care thing. Um, at the time, there was some really good uh, people that I followed online that were talking about reconnecting with yourself. And honestly, a lot of it was through me becoming trauma informed and recognizing what I've experienced, like kind of validating my own experience and being like, wow, I didn't realize that I was emotionally neglected. Like I didn't realize that some of my physical needs, even as a little kid, were neglected. And it wasn't because of my parents' hearts or their abilities, but it was because the church dominated every ounce of their time.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so like being able to kind of call out and look at myself and say, wow, these are some of the things that you've experienced, and this is some of the baggage that can come with those adverse experiences. And then, yeah, being able to kind of just label it. And when I became trauma informed and recognized like my needs were valid and my emotions were valid, and it wasn't okay that I had like that I couldn't like that my parents weren't there for certain things because the church dominated. Like it was okay that I had an emotional reaction to that. It was, recognizing that everything that I've experienced was valid and it's important because it shapes who I am, and it was affecting my present day now. And then starting to kind of reconnect with, I think when you're validated, it's really empowering. And so even being able to read people's content and go, whoa, like that validates me so much. And it empowers me to go, hold on a second. let me begin to apply some of what these teachers online are teaching about checking in with yourself. And I started researching a ton about the inner child and how we all have an inner child in us. That's why some of the wounds that we acquired when we're 7 years old affect us when we're 38. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It's as though there is no time and space from those experiences. And so I think being able to look at that kind of started to develop a dialogue with myself to be able to learn what questions to ask myself. And also from some amazing teachers who had done work too, or prior, to kind of point me in the right direction. And that's what I think is so beautiful about people in general, and so beautiful about like online communities, which I'm finding are equally as valuable to in-person communities, is that there's someone who can say, hey, I think I got what you're looking for, like go that way. And you get to go all on your own. It's not you living through my experience. It's you saying, oh my gosh, I should look that way. And then having your own experience. Do you know what I mean? And that's a big difference from the church, where they say, follow me and do what I do and don't step there because you'll hurt your foot, or you know what I mean? It's having the autonomy to do it on your own, but still taking in the tools that are necessary to, continue the path. And it's beautiful.
Wow, that's beautifully said. And everybody was chiming in about yes, 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 yes.
Oh, good.
50%. And it's funny you talk about that inner child, because, I think when you're coming out of religion, or you're pulling a string,
Mm-hmm.
okay, it does shine light not just on the church. And I think that's the misconception, that it's all about the church.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of systems.
On the rest of your being,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
who you are, that string's going to wrap and unwrap all around you and bring to light things that are not always comfortable.
Oh, 100%.
And terribly challenging. And you mentioned the community. And when you walk out of community of religion, you walk onto Instagram, you're right. Suddenly you find all these other people that have been deconstructing before deconstructing was a word.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And it's comforting, because, you look and you go, wow, I'm not the only one.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It's like, okay, I'm not some weirdo just off in left field.
Right. Absolutely.
By himself,
Mm-hmm.
And so that is incredibly encouraging. So like the people that hop on here, I've been able to form some sort of relationships with a lot of them, or get to know them. And it's like, I like these people. I don't want to church people, but I like these people.
Right. Exactly. They're the best.
I know, right? So that's awesome. So what advice would you give to somebody that is going through this process? What encouragement would you give them? Would you point them, hey, you might want to go that way or that way? What would you say?
I would probably say learn to be your own best friend. Like, learn to be the person that you always wish you needed, or you always wish you had, or the person that you needed in your life. Be that to yourself, because it's actually possible to be that to yourself. And I'm finding myself, like, there's a concept of reparenting your inner child. Like, I'm finding myself, when I feel certain ways, or certain things come up that remind me of a feeling I experienced as a child, or even when I'm parenting my own children, like, hold on a minute, like, how would I advocate for little me right now? You know what I mean? How would I, if this were my best friend, how would I advise them or comfort them, or how would I lighten their load? And it's amazing that we can do that for ourselves. A lot of the time we are still living in our programming. It doesn't happen immediately that, oh, I don't call myself a Christian anymore, I'm unprogrammed. Like, it's not as easy as like uninstall on a computer, I wish it was, but there's a lot of the time that we default into that programming. And if we would just slow down for a minute and pause and be like, what's going on in your heart? Like, what do you need right now? I think that we'd be able to be our own best friend. We'd be able to advocate for ourselves and say, what she needs right now is a nap, or what she needs right now is somebody to lighten her load, or she needs a moment to just be by herself. Like, I think it's just, I can't emphasize or stress enough how valuable it is to connect with you, like connect with who you are. And I think the reason why I'm super passionate about that is because when I left the church, it was like getting the biggest slap in the face of, you don't even know you. Like, you're so disconnected with you. If I said, "How do you feel right now, Becca?" It would be like, I don't even know. Like, it felt like my mind had been hijacked. And to get my mind back, it was like rediscovering life again in many ways. It was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've lived this long in discomfort, pretending I'm comfortable. Um, and I can't believe I've lived this long as a stranger to my own self. And I feel like it can be the most sad discovery, especially when you step into something more comfortable, or you look at yourself for the first time, like, wait, we do life together. Like, I'm in my body and I am my body, like my husband says. And I don't even know you. Like, I don't treat you well. I'm mean to your reflection constantly. Like, when you have that discovery, it can be very just disheartening. But at the same time, it's like, whoa, the future is bright, because there's so much possibility when you reconnect with who you are. And there's so much hope in partnering with your own self, partnering with your body to create the future that you want, and knowing that the power to do that is actually in your hands is amazing. And so, as bittersweet as I feel like all of life is, this journey of unlearning and learning is the same way. But I'm finding lately that there's so much more sweet than there is bitter. And even in, not to like talk too long, but even in this experience, I just recently lost my grandmother. It's been like, I think it'll be 4 weeks on Monday. And this is my first experience of losing someone having deconstructed for my faith, and it's been like difficult. It's been challenging, because the emotions, before I had this certainty that, oh, they're in heaven, they're with Jesus, they're no longer this, they're like, I had all the answers to how to pacify my own sadness and really spiritually bypass the process of grief, which is, I think, is a part of our human life. And it's been one of the most beautiful things to give myself permission to cry whenever I want. I would never have done that before. I would have been like, no, I'm not going to cry right now. I'm not going to cry. Like, I would have talked myself out of every kind of emotion I could possibly feel. But the fact that I'm saying, no, you need to cry it out. It's okay. Cry it out. And then I do. And the release that I feel, and usually for me in this process of grieving my grandma, there's just this incredible gratitude that I'm discovering and allowing me to feel, because I'm like, whoa, I am fully alive. Like, I am fully living this experience.
Yes.
And then at the same time, releasing those tears. Science has proven what crying does to your brain. It makes it more robust. It releases stress. It does a variety of good things. And so I'm partnering with me and it's really amazing. You can achieve some beautiful things, and you can really change your environment and the atmosphere within yourself when you reconnect to yourself.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful. I've got to tell you, one of the accounts I follow, and I'm sure you do as well, also your daughters.
Oh, I love her, Becky.
Yeah, Becky, I feel like has almost, pardon me, but perfected that. Like, when you watch her, and she's just so vulnerable and honest,
mm-hmm.
and willing to feel that and carry that.
Absolutely.
Exactly what you're talking about, because I'm going through helping a friend, or being there for a friend, I guess you could say, that's going through cancer.
Mm.
The first time I've been encountered with somebody outside of the church, or like not in the church, walking through somebody like this, and all my normal sayings, just they're out.
Not there.
They're
Yep.
not there.
They're not like, God's got you. You just can't default to those things anymore.
And so you're just feeling it,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like it's healthy, because I feel like what I was doing in the past was merely shoving it off and not ever dealing with it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hey, he or she's in heaven. They're in a better place. They're happy. Don't be sad. It's that you're not free to grieve.
Yes, absolutely.
You have a lack of faith.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so being able to grieve now,
mm-hmm.
just like you were saying, is freeing. wonderful. I feel like I'm feeling for the first time in a lot of new experiences.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I totally hear that, and your husband's right with the way he describes that, and so it's just incredibly powerful. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
totally, I love that. I love that. I love that advice. Um, so let me ask you this:
Sure.
you have a lot going on. I think your family always has a lot going on.
Yeah, a little bit. We got a big family.
Yeah, you got everything. Hey, Heather,
Hi,
um,
Heather.
thing going on, right? So, um, for people that are wanting to follow you, like say they watch the replay and they're like, "Hey, we know who Brad is, but we don't know who Becca is, or
Yeah.
Becca," you know? And at, tell us. I mean, because I know you do a lot, and you're so. How can people get a hold of you? Are you open to DMs?
Yes.
Web page, podcast, anything? What do you have for people?
Okay. Well, you can, I have a podcast in the works, which is really exciting.
No,
My husband and I have a podcast together. The link is in my bio for that. And then you can find me at say what I wanna underscore here on Instagram. And my DMs are always open. And there's just a lot more in the works. There's a lot of video coming. There's a whole bunch of content that I'm creating along with my husband. And then of course, just glimpses into the ever complex mind of me on my say what I want to page. Yeah, helphumans.care/contact. That's for Mia Luell if you want to join our emailing list. Help Humans is our thing, and it's amazing, and you guys are going to learn more about that soon. So yeah, that's where you can find me, and my DMs are always open.
I didn't even know about the Help Humans doc there.
Yeah.
Write that down. So, pardon me while I write that down.
Yeah, do.
Also, just for those that have just tuned in, don't forget to follow Called Spirit on his YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, he has amazing videos on there.
Between the two of you and what you guys are putting out, it's magnificent. So
Thank you.
I want to thank you guys for the impact you've had on my life.
Oh, thanks.
And the content you put out there is always challenging, but also encouraging.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And so I really appreciate that about you and your family, and how real you are. You're relatable.
Thank you.
So I do appreciate that. And so with that being said, we're going to wrap up our time here.
Sure.
But once again, I thank you for your time. I thank everybody that's been able to join, everybody watching.
Yes, thank you so much.
Questions, feel free to DM either her or I here. There's no, and that's a beautiful thing. I love these conversations and I love the deconstructing community, if we can still call it that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not competition. We're just all here for each other, which is
so beautiful.
Work.
Yes.
It's so different.
So different.
I love that.
Me too.
So I appreciate you, your family, and
likewise.
And thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks for having me. And of course, I know we'll talk again soon.
You got it.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.